Hello everyone, it's Josephine Sneha here. Hope you're all doing well. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a poem called Death Be Not Proud. It is written by Donne. It is also called as Holy Sonnet or Sonnet number 10. We all know that sonnet means 14 lines poetry. And here we see that the poet Donne, he's one of the leading member of the metaphysical poets. So we all know that metaphysical poets were like the topmost in 17th century because of their use of language, words, theme, etc. So their language was like hair-splitting expressions were filled with hair-splitting expressions, and the way of comparison was like something different at that time, because at 17th century the way of writing was entirely different, but whereas these metaphysical poets wrote in a very different way. So Donne is like well known for that. His way of handling even universal concepts like love, death, etc. is completely different. So this poem of Donne can be categorized as religious/devotional poetry, even motivational poetry as well. It comes under that genre. So let's begin with the poem, shall we? So to begin with, the opening lines of the poem is, "Death be not proud." So here the speaker directly addresses death. He says, or he asks death not to be proud, because some people addresses death to be mighty, fearful, etc. But for the speaker or the poet, it is not that the case. Want to know why? Because he says that people actually fear death because they think someday death will actually approach them and then they are dead, they are no longer living. But for poet, he says that is not true. He feels that he actually pities death because death doesn't seem, even though it portrays itself to be mighty, it is not the case. Moving on, Donne also compares death with that of rest and sleep. He says, he even adds that death is actually a very pleasurable experience compared to death and sleep. In the next line, he says that some way or the other, even the best man has to go and face death. In that case, our body actually needs rest, or it takes rest. But whereas it is the soul that goes and meets the afterlife. Once again, Donne addresses death as death to be the slave of fate, chance, kings, and desperate men. So he says that death will actually approach them and they will also be like the slave to them. So that is what he says. And Donne also considers even the magical spells and charms to be even more effective compared to death. So in these lines, we can see that Donne doesn't even get bothered about it. It's more or less like he feels death to be something inferior. So that is how he is treating death. Additionally, he says that death is something that cannot approach us once we move on to afterlife. So we see that death is kind of like a mediator between our earthly life and afterlife. So one need not be scared or afraid that death might approach us. So he also warns death that it need not be filled with pride, because as I told you, he treats death to be something inferior. And also we need to remember the two positions. Earthly life and afterlife. So death is something a mediator, and it can only just carry us, or a medium of transition from the place we are living to afterlife. So it should be death who should be scared that it cannot hold us or have a complete power over us till eternity. So it is like a rest or sleep. So it happens only for like a few hours, a few seconds, that's it. So it should be death who should be scared of us and not us. So in the end, we see that Donne is pacifying us, or more or less like motivating that we need not be scared of death. So everything is temporal. That's what he states. He says that our life here on earth is temporary and the afterlife is something permanent. So what happens between death is something like temporary. So we should not give any power or position to death, and it should be death who should be scared of us and not the other way. So that is all about this poem where Donne talks about death. He approaches death in a different dimension compared to the other poets as well. So that's all here. We'll meet in another video. Until that, stay safe and make healthy choices. Bye.